Hello, good morning, all, and welcome to yet another webinar organized by American Tamil Entrepreneurs Association, Chicago chapter. And we have a wonderful session today, how to open a franchises. And we have four experts, including the moderator. And I'd like to introduce the moderator first, and Venky Sadagopan. And Venky Sadagopan, he's from New Jersey, and he's a management consultant with over 30 years of experience in a combination of corporate and entrepreneurial business development. Venky helps in startups and small enterprises in strategy, market development, and business growth. He has helped several new franchise businesses get off ground, and by creating business plans with deep market, competitive, and financial analysis that has helped them get funding both from SBA and as well as private equity investors. And in fact, Venky helped me and helping me like in writing several business plans both in US and for startups like in India. Thank you, Venky. And he's very detailed actually. I mean, in fact, I gave one raw data startup from India, and he did a lot of research work and did an excellent job. Thank you, Venky. And the businesses he has helped range from entertainment franchises like Bounce You, food franchises like Taco Bell, Curry Up, and medical devices franchise. And he is an executive committee of American Tamil Entrepreneurs Association. And he is now freshly minted financial advisor with New York Life Insurance Company. He has also ventured into Tamil feature film productions, and he is the co-founder of Punarjaman Foundation Trust, a non-profit charity organization. And before handing over the mic to Venky, whether we have Northeast Chapter Region Coordinator Ram Nagapan. If not, Venky, you can start with our regional conference, which is going to happen on September 26th.
Sure, Shiva. Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Truly blessed and very happy to be here today in this webinar. So I'm Venky Sadagopan, and I live and work out of New Jersey, and part of ATEA, American Tamil Entrepreneurs Association, right from the time the organization was started back in 2016. So our region, the Northeast region, is conducting a regional conference, which is going to be virtual. It's happening on September 26th. It'll be between 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I would request all of you to come and attend. We've got some very interesting panels lined up, just like the one that we're going to do today. In that regional conference, we've got panels around real estate investment. We've got panels around media and entertainment investment. And we also have a women's panel. There's a solid representation. So, and we have some very interesting keynote addresses, the opening and closing keynote. So it's going to be a very, very informative afternoon. So I definitely request all of you to join us, attend it, and benefit out of it. So again, it's on September 26th, just a couple of weeks from now. So on that note, coming to this session, today's session, what is franchising, right? A franchise is a commercial chain that licenses rights to a branded product or service, right, to others. Every franchise relationship consists of two players, the franchisor and the franchisee. And today we have two of them here on the panel. Today, franchises are responsible for nearly half of all retail transactions in the United States. And I let the panelists corroborate that fact. With over more than 4,000 franchise options to choose from, Many aspiring business owners opt to join a franchise instead of attempting to start their own business from scratch. So this industry accounts for at least $800 billion annually. So today we're going to see if you can decide if franchising is right for you and what are the advantages of franchising. And to talk to us about all of that, we have these three panelists with us today. So let me quickly go with a round of brief introductions. The first panelist. So before I get into that, Shiva, are we okay? Can I jump right into the panel, or do you have any further announcements?
Yeah, you can join, and I request Venky also, to brief about how to, how important in writing the business plans, actually. Okay, and you are expert in that, and in between, asking the questions, you can shed your ideas and expertise as well.
Most certainly, we'll do that. Thank you, Shiva. So coming back to our panelists, uh, the first panelist I'd like to introduce is Ajay Sunkara. Ajay is the co-founder of Best Brains Learning Centers. Best Brain is a learning center franchise with over 150 locations across US and Canada. Ajay is also a business owner. He's the director of Usha Rama College of Engineering, Advanced Software Development, Khajuraho Beer, and the Mall of India in Chicago. So welcome to the show, Ajay. Really good to have you here.
Thank you, Venky. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And pleasure to have on this panel right now. Yeah.
I do have to have a private conversation with you around Khajuraho Beer.
Sure, definitely.
And the next panelist is Parthiban Jayaraman. Parthiban holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Madras University as well as from West Virginia University. He has a master's in structural engineering from Anna University and a master's in business administration from Delaware State University. So he's been in the franchise business from 2002. His company portfolio holds multi-unit franchises with Dunkin' Donuts, the Green Turtle Sports Bar and Grill, and some real estate as well. So Parthiban served the state of Delaware for 20 years at various capacities, where he was the chief operating officer for the Department of Technology and Information when he left service in 2018. So between 2002 and 2018, Parthiban was serving the state of Delaware plus running his franchise businesses. So there's going to be a lot of great learning coming out of that. So Parthiban, apart from his interests in IT and business in general, volunteers for the Alzheimer's Association, mentors those who want to transition into business, and he also enjoys reading books. So welcome, Parthiban. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then the next panelist we have is Seth Lederman, a franchise acquisition and development specialist. Seth is a multifaceted entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in small business success, including ownership and sale of his own business enterprises. Seth is an educator, consultant, and an advocate for franchise ownership. He has appeared on ABC, CBS News, Wall Street Journal, NBC, Fox News, and so many channels, and also has written 2 Amazon bestsellers, Guide to Marketing Your Presence Online and Simple Ideas, Extraordinary Results. So Seth's forthcoming book, Profits Are Better Than Wages, is releasing in Q4 of 2020. It cannot be a more apt person than this for us to have on this panel. Welcome to the show, Seth. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm pleasure to be here among this esteemed panel.
Also, and Seth also is known as the franchise matchmaker. So today, it's great to have the 3 people. Like I said earlier, we have a franchisor, we have a franchisee, and we have a franchise consultant who can literally show you which is the best franchise, which is the right franchise that suits your profile as either an existing entrepreneur or as an aspiring entrepreneur who's trying to, take the leap from the workforce to becoming a business owner, right? And he can literally handhold you, take you there, and also find the funding and the necessary tools that you might require. So on that note, just so everybody knows how this is going to flow, this is going to be an hour, And we have the first round of questions that I'll ask each one of the panelists, and then the next round of questions where it'll be open to all the panelists to answer. And then we'll throw it open to the audience to ask questions. And the other Parthiban we have here might moderate that, or Ravi, or one of them will bring us the questions that we receive from the audience. This is streaming live on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And we've got more than, I guess, about 100 registered attendees. So everybody welcome and sit back and enjoy this conversation. Let me jump right in and ask our panelists to, go one round of self-introduction with your, the business and what you do and so on and so forth. Can we start with Ajay, please?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Venky. I actually come from a business family. In fact, my dad has been into business for a long time. So right after I graduated, in fact, I jumped on the wagon and took over the family business, which was IT consulting at the time. And during the 2008 financial collapse, in fact, we were wondering about other options to explore. And that's where we thought like an education would be something which would be consistent all through, the economic times, in fact, whatever the scenario might be. And that's where we jumped on the, we didn't know about Corona back then, in fact. So we jumped on the education wagon. And first, we never thought about franchising. In fact, we really thought about, let's do it on our own, kind of, let's explore how it is, because I want to take the entire pie, I didn't want to share it with anyone. But yeah, down the lane, like after we started, we expanded up to 8 locations. That's when we realized that it's not something that we can do on our own. It's not something that can be scalable. We're trying to expand at the same time, like maintain the same quality. That's where we looked at franchising, in fact, and that's one of the best decisions we made. Ever since then, definitely, like it reduced our workload a lot. We still were able to maintain some quality. We were able to share our knowledge, and today we stand at 150 locations. In fact, yeah, that was a pretty good learning experience, and yeah, definitely like to share our experiences with the panel, and as well as the other audience that are watching right now.
Phenomenal. All right, so Parthiban, why did you choose to get into franchising? And I know you straddled both worlds. You had one leg in corporate, you were with the state of Delaware, and then one leg in franchise for almost 16 years. You was handling both in parallel. So how did that pan out, and where are you now? So please share with us.
Right. Thanks. That was a good question, Venky. So I wanted to be in business all the time. So I wanted to go to IAM. I didn't. But then at some point, your heart and your interests align. So I wanted to be in business, and a bunch of friends in 2002, soon after the dot-com bubble, we were just looking for a business opportunity that will allow us to launch ourselves and become independent of the workforce. So we started off with attending various franchise sessions, and then apparently Dunkin' held one locally, and we met a franchise manager, and we talked to him. We were novice. We didn't know much about it at that time because we were a bunch of IT professionals, and we learned it the hard way. But we did decide to sign up with Dunkin', which is by far the best decision I've made on the business side. So we signed up a 5-store agreement in 2002, and then we started developing stores, and we grew to 7 restaurants in 2007. And it was a little lull after that with the recession and also saturation of the market. And Dunkin' has its own way of expanding and things like that. So so that's how I got into franchise business, and that's how I got into business as well. So cash is king, and cash flow is very important. So quitting the job is easy to do, but your business has to survive. So one of our friends came on board full time, and then the rest of us were just helping from the sidelines. And then we moved from quick service restaurants to full service restaurants like Green Turtle Sports Bar and Grill, where you seat 300 people and service them, create a great ambience for sports, and probably buy Ajay's beer and sell there. And so it was, that's another realm. So it's totally different. And obviously nobody expected this pandemic. And it's a great learning time. And I've been, for those who are skeptical to invest right now, I'll quote a harsh metaphor from Baron Rothschild. The time to invest is when there is blood on the streets. Unfortunately, it's literally true today. My heart goes out to all peaceful protesters and the police who try to keep our streets safe by risking their own lives. But unfortunately, that is true. And for investors, this is a great time to invest. Uncertainty, people pull back. And if we have the faith in the system, I'm sure US will come back and the markets will come back, whether roaring or slowly, no matter what, in years to come, it's going to come back and gain traction. So this is a great time to invest. I've been driving in and out of New York City. Venky, you might have recently, from March, at least once a month, I used to make a trip, and all the directions have been changed because they've extended the restaurants into outdoor dining and they've closed down some of the streets and so on. But when we drive through these streets, in late March, early April, I saw a lot of these storefronts have closed signs because all these businesses were closed. But they were not closed for permanently because they were planning to come back as soon as the pandemic is over. Because of the uncertainty hanging over, these closed signs, when I went in July and August, I see slowly turning into either open or space available. So some of the businesses went away, so they don't want to come back. So this puts a pressure on the landlord who are over leveraged. Those who have been over leveraged are now feeling the pinch to pay their mortgage and are willing to cut great deals. So I'm linking this to those who are skeptical to invest. This is the time because a lot of these franchisees are running after great spaces to get them under very good lease terms.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Parthiban, to talk a little bit more about that in a little more detail, because of course there are a lot of people who are watching today who might want to hear more about that. So I'll come right back to you on that. Seth, from working in the business, you went to working on the business, and then you started doing the franchise matchmaking. Tell us more about that, please.
I started as a healthcare provider, and like most physicians, I ended up going room to room to room, treating patients, working in the practice. I was the business. Mm-hmm. And then I read a book that was pivotal for me and it changed my life, called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Many of you might be familiar with that book. The E-Myth is the entrepreneur myth. And that myth is, because I understand the work that a business does, I understand owning a business that delivers and sells that kind of service. So just because you know how to be a plumber doesn't mean that you know how to run a plumbing business. And the greatest perspective, Michael said, that you could have about your business is pretend that your business is one of 5,000 more locations just like it. What would the first one need to look like in order for you to be able to have that business not be dependent upon you? Because if you have a business that's dependent upon you, you don't have a business, you have a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a maniac, yourself. So what would you need to do to your business to make it not dependent upon you? And I read that book, I applied what I had learned, and within 36 months, I was free of the business. Other physicians were treating patients. I had time to work on the practice, not in it, do strategic work. And that took us from about $500,000 in revenue to close to 4 million in 36 months, just by pulling myself out of the operating level of the business. So when I had done that, I was getting phone calls daily from colleagues wanting to know how I did what I did. Vendors contacting me wanting to know what I did. So I ended up becoming a consultant. Naturally what you do when you have a lot of time in your hands and when you worked in an industry. And I wound up working with franchises both in and out of healthcare obviously because of my credibility, but I was working with franchisors and franchisees. Franchisors wanted me to help them with struggling franchisees. And what I found consistently as a fundamental common denominator, great, smart, savvy owners and a great franchise and a really bad match. Skill set match, cultural match, so many different variables and selection criteria they were unaware of. Just because you like pizza doesn't mean you should own a Pizza Hut. There are a lot of things that you want to take into consideration, all of the variables, all the nuances and idiosyncrasies that will be most important to you before you ever make that decision. And the people that I met, if they knew what they found out after they signed an agreement, if they knew that before, they would have made a very different decision. And that was, for me, a wake-up call in seeing where the work that I wanted to do and needed to do was in franchising. And that was helping people make the right decision and which franchise is best suited for them. So what I do now is I work with people in career transition and investors that are looking to explore franchise ownership, either as a career transition alternative or as a diversification strategy for their portfolio. And franchises, as you know, come in many sizes, shapes, and colors. And there are some great ones and not great ones as well. And the most important thing that you need to know is which one is best for you. So I take investors and career transitioners through a very methodical approach in exploring opportunities that we best suited for them to explore because it aligns with their skill sets and strengths, their industry preferences and interests, will provide a return on investment in a reasonable period of time. Expectations are aligned, cultural alignment, all of those variables, which will give them the greatest likelihood for success in franchise ownership.
Great. Thank you for that. Yes, and that actually gives me the lead into my next question to all the panelists, right? So there are so many different ways or methods a person can choose to enter into the franchise business. And the speciality of the franchise business is that it lends itself to someone who wants to do it, as a hobby, want to hold on to their full-time job and do it part-time, or they want to use it as a transition, keep the job, do the franchise till such time that it starts generating enough revenue and then kick the job and get to it fully. Or, you're already an existing entrepreneur doing some other business, want to diversify your portfolio, you want to get into franchising. So it lends itself to all of these combinations and allows people, it looks like it's probably the business with the lowest entry barrier. Am I right in saying that? And this is open to any one of you to answer.
I'll take that question, Venky. It is very true that if you start your own business, there are so many things involved because you are end all be all, and you have to be there everywhere. And then, like Seth alluded to, you become a person having a job instead of running a business. So there are several things that are considered. I normally put this as 2 R's and a C and a P, which is responsibilities, risks, costs, and profits. Real quick, your responsibilities are much higher when you run your own business compared to you franchise a business, because there are portions of the business that the franchisor takes care of, provides all the tools and techniques, and provides the overall marketing, and you have to do some local marketing yourself. But in addition to that, the risks are also lowered because you can focus your time on operations, finance, and a local marketing and so on. So it's fully, you give all your time to the business for the growth of it from 1 unit, successful, second, third, fourth, and so on, while the corporate, the franchisor is developing all the tools necessary for you. With respect to costs, if you run your own business, the costs are going to be higher because you're going to hire consultants. You're not going to be experts in everything. You're not going to be an expert in finance. You're not going to be an expert in marketing and so on. So you're going to hire consultants, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. Profits. There comes the standoff where if you go with franchise, obviously they'll skim the profits top like 8 to 12%. But I would stand here and say it's worth it for some of the brands, right? And even after paying 12%, Dunkin' and other very good franchises make more money for you. So that's a win-win situation. So for any person who's willing to transition, franchise is a good option.
Okay.
I was going to say that the first thing that I like to determine when I work with investors is franchising the right direction for them to get where they're looking to get to? because you have options. You have non-franchise businesses, you have startups, and franchises are proven models, and a proven model is going to save you a lot of time. It's speed to business and speed to cash, because cash is king. So when I work with people, I want to make sure they're not risk averse. If their personality profile, and I use an objective measurement assessment tool to make sure there are no red flags. If they're too risk averse, if they don't have the fundamental intestinal fortitude, I'll call it, to jump across the finish line of signing an agreement, they might be better off staying employed. Although I consider employment the illusion of security, it's just, do they have the qualities and attributes to make that leap? But then on the other side of the equation, too entrepreneurial might not be great for franchise ownership as well. If you would have trouble or feel frustrated following someone else's recipe, and that's me, I'd be the worst franchisee. Much better doing what I'm doing, because I would try to change Kentucky Fried Chicken's formula, not because it needed it, just because that's what I like to do, is fix and change things. And that wouldn't work well with corporate. So if you're too entrepreneurial, you're better suited in a startup or non-franchise business. So I think making sure that before you go down a bunch of rabbit holes chasing opportunities and evaluating business models, do you have the makeup for business ownership?
Great.
Yeah, and I would echo to both Parthiban and Seth on this thing. It really is a lifestyle choice. In fact, it's really about can you still work under, you want to get rid of a job, but still you have to follow some protocols. In fact, if the franchisor says like this wall has to be white in color, it has to be white. You cannot paint it blue or red, even though you feel that might attract more customers. In fact, so your creativity is killed to an extent. But the beauty of it is it is a very good transition. In fact, we all have a strict budget. This is actually one shot. We cannot fail. And you want to get into business, but you want to take the least amount of risk. In fact, then franchising would be a very good option to explore. But again, like you still have to follow some protocols. So if you are not into, just as I said, if you really are not into taking orders for someone, you really have to reconsider which path you want to take.
Okay. So from that perspective, if someone wants to get into a franchise business, right? There are obviously various factors one needs to consider, but one of the factors is how much money am I willing to invest, right? So how does one determine that, he or she could go in for a particular franchise? It could be a food and beverage franchise, or an education franchise like yours, Ajay, or it could be like entertainment franchise. There's just various franchises to get in. How does one determine what will be suitable for him or her from a suitability perspective, finance perspective, and all other factors that come into play?
So when it comes to I'll take this question. In fact, so when it comes to choosing it, it really depends on what you want to be or where you want to be. The profits part of it, the financial aspect of it is definitely something that you need to look into. But it's more of like what you want to do on a day-to-day basis. Can you run this job? Can you run this this franchisee, independently? Like, do you like working there? Do you like managing it? The financial aspect of it, coming out of the franchising part of it, it's not as difficult as starting your own business, just because there's already a proven model somewhere. So in terms of the lenders or banks, they actually would be a little bit more willing to secure loans for you rather than like trying to reinvent everything and trying to run after the banks, as well as define your formula at the same time. But the question of which franchise you want to take really depends on where you want to see yourself, where you want to see the growth of it. Also, the scenarios are important. In fact, the current market scenarios play a huge role. What is the future of this thing? You don't want to take a blockbuster franchise right now. You really have to see what's current in the market, in fact. So all these things combined, like it's something, as Seth has mentioned, like, having a point system or writing on a piece of paper and deciding which way to go might be an ideal scenario.
I think what's also critically important is understanding the different types of operating models in franchising, because everyone has a perception and assumption that franchising is an absentee, passive business. And I can tell you only two things run on their own: a business and a car, and that's downhill. So franchisors have an expectation of your time involvement. And there are different operating models. One could be owner operator. You are the business. You don't have infrastructure. It's your man in a van concept, right? It's your roto-rooter plumber. He jumped ship from working for a plumbing company to go on his own. He doesn't have the desire or appetite to build and scale. And that's fine. He bought himself a job, but he went in full well knowing that. Mm-hmm. The other end of the spectrum are executive models. This is what investors come to me for. They're employed or have other business interests, and they want to invest in franchising, but franchisors have an expectation of about 15 hours a week. And if your current role in what you're doing doesn't provide you the latitude and flexibility of fielding phone calls throughout the week from the manager who's overseeing that operations, you're jeopardizing your business. And there are several opportunities that are executive models. All the big names are set up for executive ownership. But a majority of the franchises that exist in this country have an expectation of full-time involvement. And does it make sense for you to leave what you're doing to be a full-time owner? That's where the economics come into play. Because if you look at the unit economics of a franchise, any of them you would ever consider needs to make sense financially. It's a business decision. But will a single operating unit or location justify your departure? Well, that's up to you. The unit economics, the EBITDA might be 20% or greater. That's a good investment, but can it replace your salary and get a return on your investment? You might need 3 locations to do that. Nobody buys multiple locations just to be a multi-unit owner. They do it because their financial goals and objectives would dictate they would need to without shooting themselves in the foot and hoping they're going to get 3 times unit economics out of a single location would be a risky play. Then you want to do a multi-unit license. You have the opportunity to purchase that multi-unit license at a discount by making the decision up front. So that's the reason to do it. Make sense?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll add a little bit on to that. So exactly like what Seth said, the amount of time you invest is very important. Even Dunkin', where people who own 50, 60 franchise units, the owner presence is needed. It's not like you pour a cup of coffee and give it to the customer. That's not the level of involvement they expect, but they need you to be involved in the business. I completely agree with Seth's statement that if the car goes downhill, then nobody needs to pay attention. But for the business to thrive, you need to have your presence. But once again, it goes back to your goal as well. What do you want to do? Many of my friends told, why don't you open an Indian restaurant? I mean, I need to look at the demographics, right? So how many Indian restaurants can I open? I mean, if you want to go from 1 to 100 or 1 to 50 or 1 to 20, you need to have a proper model that supports you to go from 1 to 20 or 1 to 30. So looking at that, you'll have to decide which franchise you want to go with. The brand is very important right now. I mean, you can risk by taking a less known brand and hope it'll grow. That's one thing, versus a proven brand. Chick-fil-A needs, they give very few franchises, but they need 100% of your time. You're just a glorified GM for a Chick-fil-A franchise. So do you want to be there? No. So first you'll have to determine exactly what you want to be, where you want to be 5 years, 10 years. You want to grow 2 units, stop, 3 units, stop, but you want to go to 20 units, 25 units, and so on.
And one more thing to add, Venky, what I see is during the franchising interview process and stuff, we really have to be like, if you're applying for a franchise, you got to be really honest to yourself. You just don't want to lie to there or change your thoughts and ideas just because you're gonna secure this franchisee by being not being you there. So try to be really honest when you're going through the franchise interview process and stuff. Just because once you sign this document, you're gonna be stressed in terms of financial liabilities, in terms of your time and commitments, and yeah, you might not enjoy the thing later. In fact, so be you while you're going through this thing. Yeah, you might not secure this franchise, but something else is there. It's always waiting for you there.
Right. So what I'm hearing is essentially, if I have 50,000 to invest, there's a franchise opportunity for me. If I have 500,000 to invest, there's a franchise opportunity waiting for me. So be it whatever number I have in mind in terms of initial investment, there is something that I can get into. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
There's enough options out there that all of the things that would be important to you to have met personally, professionally, and financially, once you're clear on that you could evaluate a subset of a very large amount of opportunities and not get into paralysis by analysis, because it's daunting and overwhelming. If you go on the internet, a lot of information out there, it's not all accurate. A lot of it's outdated and it's mostly promotional. Very hard for anyone to get on the internet and without a methodical approach in knowing what's the best franchise for them, the market that they're in, that will meet their goals and objectives and will be respectful of their time and boundaries with family and all the things you would want to know before you sign an agreement.
Mm-hmm. So, and one of the other things which is most important, and this is something I personally have come across while writing business plans for franchise owners who have applied for SBA loans to get their franchise off the ground, right? Like I've written several Taco Bell franchise business plans. So one of the things the banks look for when they are approving these plans is your market analysis, the demographics in that region, what is the competitive scenario, competitive analysis in that area, and all of that, those factors which tell you that, hey, there's so much potential in this particular market, and that's the reason it justifies putting a Taco Bell over here, or putting a Best Brain Center over here. So and that becomes absolutely essential, tying it up to what Seth mentioned in terms of there's an overload of information available out there if you were to go and Google, right? For you to understand and sieve the wheat from the chaff, so to say, to know which is right information and which is fluff, and then just take the right information is by in itself a daunting task, and it requires the help of some experts to help you identify that. Is that a fair statement to make?
I'll take this question. Yes, that is true. Banks want you to be successful. Even if you go through SBA loan, SBA guarantees the bank 80% insurance. So the bank still has a stake in it. And then you have your own equity in it. And the bank ultimately wants you to be successful so that they get their money back and they can partner with you in the long run. So they certainly look into it. If you go for branded franchisees like Taco Bell, McDonald's, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, or any of these top franchises, they have tools.
Mm-hmm.
They have tools that they can show you that there is potential there. So even we have taken multiple sites to Dunkin' and they've declined it.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken sites and they've approved within a heartbeat. So they also walk with us and tell, hey, here, you can have a unit here based on the demographics. There are 10,000 people, 20,000 cars go this way every morning, whatever. So based on these, they have tools developed. They have developed tools to help you say it will be potentially successful. With meeting all those criteria, is it going to be successful all the time? No, we've lost one store, amazing number of people, huge traffic. Still, it didn't do it's supposed to do. After 10 years, we shut it down. So it happens. It does happen that some of those would still not be successful, but you need to do your groundwork. We are increasing the possibility of it being successful by doing that. One more thing, when you said banks, the franchisor, nothing against you, Ajay. So the franchisors write the FDD document, franchisor disclosure document, so that it protects the brand. That's what they need to take care, because they put their heart and soul, and for years and decades and for generations, such franchises have been established. They develop the FDD. Banks look at if the SBA has registered their FDD in their SBA registry. That's very important. If it is registered, that means that it's not too one-sided. It's always one-sided. The franchise FDD document is always one-sided, leaning towards the franchisor, period. But is it too one-sided? If it is too one-sided, SBA would not register it. So that's a very important thing to look when you are narrowing down the franchises. You can check if it is registered in SBA registry, then you're getting into a reasonably fair agreement.
Yeah, and that's true as well, Parthiban. Like we do have this clause. Like again, we try to secure the brands as much as possible, particularly with the cancel culture all over the market. So a small mistake in California might hurt our brand in Delaware. In fact, so we do protect it, and SBA does ask for it. So it's something you negotiate with your franchisor. We do give waivers or addendums, from time to time for that particular franchisee who is applying for a loan. Even though we register it, like we don't apply it for the universal part of it. We just only exclusively give it to that particular franchisee. Yeah, that's something you need to talk to your franchisor when you're shopping around.
I totally agree, and I want to add one point to that. Several months ago, we've been in the sports bar and grill business for almost 7 years now, and only once I had to appear before the liquor commissioner. So the thing happens is, if somebody serves alcohol for an underage person, you're in trouble. First time you violate, you go to the liquor commissioner. Second time you violate, there's a huge fine, you still go to the liquor commissioner. Third time you violate, you're shut down. So it's very serious offense. But it happens very rarely. But when it happens, you are at the mercy of the $14 an hour employee. We train every one of them. You put $3-4 million to build a restaurant, but you are still at the mercy of the employee who is serving alcohol. So you have to be very careful in training, reinforcing, reiterating. So business is not just we being right alone. So it's a lot more than that.
Sure, sure. So in terms of the whole franchise business, just like every other business, they keep transforming and changing every few years. So has there been any sort of change in the whole franchise industry as it was 5 years back and as it is today? And do you again anticipate any further significant changes or transformation happening in that industry over the next 5 or 10 years?
It's a great question if I can jump in here, because obviously right now everyone knows we're in this COVID situation. And I've been twice as busy as I've ever been during this, which would be counterintuitive to most people. Everyone was home thinking about their next move, maybe let go or it was imminent, and had time to explore their options. And everyone said, what do you think is going to happen in the market? And I said, if I knew that, I'd be a very wealthy man. But what I can tell you is, and we shared this earlier, there's been a lot of silver linings to this COVID cloud, including innovations to franchise models very quickly. Industries got impacted, no doubt. Fitness and beauty industry, anything in retail where social distancing was an issue. Very quickly, franchisors retooled, provided safe environments, took care of franchisees. I've never seen so much support by the franchise industry for franchisees to make sure that they weathered the storm. We know right now very clearly what are considered essential and non-essential services. So industries in franchising that didn't used to be considered sexy, the new sexy is recession resistance. So the essential service industry is where a lot of attention is being focused right now. But innovation is happening very, very fast to make sure that these industries can continue to flourish and grow, and they're all rebounding and will be coming back. But any investors out there that are considering franchise ownership right now, understand that it's a several-month process in decision-making. And we'll know a lot more, especially after the election, where things are headed, and you could always pivot away. Don't exclude any industries based upon COVID, because the beauty industry and the fitness industry are not going away. They're going to retool. The unit economics will need to work. If capacity is half what it used to be, well, rent will be half too, as we shared earlier. So there's a lot of counterbalances to what's happening. And the most changes that I've seen in franchising are happening right now.
Great.
I agree with you, Seth, on the fitness industry. I myself put on 10 pounds, so I need to go back and hit the gym once everything goes back to normal. So I do agree in terms of what Seth said, but the beauty of the franchising part of it is, having distributed all across the country or all across the world, most of the franchisors, we do get a lot of information from everywhere. So any scenario like the COVID scenario, for instance, applying my scenario here, we have classic, pencil and paper classroom kind of a setup. All the locations were shut down in a week's time, in fact, right from US to Canada, in fact. But what happens is, we actually retooled, with the strength of all our franchises, we could actually get a team up and running, and within a week we were online, in fact. So it actually helps, in terms of having a franchising system, where you share knowledge from a lot of them, and also coming out of recession. In fact, for instance, like right now, our Canadian centers have already been open, so we're getting a lot of feedback and input from them, which we're going to later apply to all the US centers when they start opening. So being a part of the franchising system, no matter how the market is going to be, no matter how trends change, And they keep changing, as you said, Venky, they keep changing every few years, in fact. But you will be able to get much more feedback than you being an independent owner and trying to do the research all by yourself, in fact.
True. Parthiban?
Yeah, so that is very true. In COVID situation, all the industry tried to adapt so that they don't lose revenue. Obviously, the casual dining restaurants were shut down, and only takeout in Delaware, at least, only takeout was allowed. So the takeout market went from 10% of the total revenue and became the 100% of the revenue for that short period of time when only takeout was allowed. But then when the restaurants were opened up, phase 1, phase 2, we are at 60% capacity now. In the 60% capacity, we are almost 40% takeout revenue. So that's a big shift from where we were pre-COVID. And people are now feeling comfortable to order food and eat. And now even the franchisors are thinking on making their menu travelable. I mean, food, you cannot make a crispy item travel crispy for 20 minutes. Like you put some fries with your burger, by the time it reaches there, even if you provide some holes in the box, it's still going to be soggy. So we need to make food travelable. So the packaging industry has evolved. So all these things are going to cost a little bit more, but end of the day, if you can get fresh food while you're having fun with your family, watching a favorite show at home, that'll be great. And of course, if you always want to go and get out with your friends and have fun watching a game or two. So that's going to be there as well. The options are always better for the citizens. So the adapting that the industry has taken is going to help the citizens eventually, or make the lives of the citizens better.
Great. So I'm going to segue into questions that have started coming from the viewers. So one of the questions that has come from Prakash Narayan of the Silicon Valley ATA chapter is scaling for a franchise only opening additional franchises? How does one scale their current business or location?
I'll take that. So scaling can happen, or the growth can happen either organically or through acquisitions. So you open 1 or 2 or 3, and then the franchisor sees you are very potential franchisee to expand. And when the next time when another franchise or someone goes default around you, so they're going to acquire those stores and give it to you, or you'll be given an opportunity to buy their stores and expand. So to exactly answer the question, the growth is not just by building unit after unit. You can do that and also acquire people who are either default or who are retiring and so on.
Also, Venky, depends on the franchisor. In fact, if the franchisor is willing to add more services to the same existing franchisee, for instance. Takeout is a small example, for instance. If you have a franchisor who's not adaptive and who's not ready to add Uber Eats, for instance, right now, that doesn't make sense. That's actually ruining your market share, in fact. So as long as a franchisor, that's something you need to keep it in consideration when you're shopping for franchisees, in fact. If a franchisor is ready to add more services with the same facility, that way definitely you can see much better growth, in fact.
So Ajay, so in your particular case, let's say I don't know exactly what are all the things that Best Brain teaches, but let's say hypothetically you teach math, and then one of your franchisees comes and tells you, hey, can we add physics, or can we add chemistry as a subject? Would you permit them to add something like that to the?
That's a good question, Venky, and that's actually an issue that every franchisor in the world actually faces, I guess. McDonald's in India wants to serve biryani, but you cannot serve biryani there now. So it really depends on how you want to do as a franchisor. In fact, we do actually acknowledge the feedbacks that we get from our franchisees, and we do implement a few test case scenarios here and there. If a franchisee comes to me saying they want to implement physics, just as in this area it's all physics, so we do set up a small pilot project there to see how it works, and then if it really works, we implement it all across the nation. But we're not gonna we are not open to every request that comes across. Definitely, we need to keep the brand in mind, the quality of the franchisor, the healthy. It has to be a healthy system. In fact, it's not that you can add whatever you want. It has to be consistent all across. That's something we really go case by case.
Okay. Seth, here's a question for you. Is Subway still a good franchise? And what are the recommended resources to learn more about franchise opportunities? Are there any links and books?
So I think there are brands that are mature brands that have been there for a long time and they're solid. And this industry is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. You have the opportunity to review a disclosure document that's updated annually and it's audited information. You have the opportunity to read reviews. All of that is extremely important. My opinion about a franchise is really irrelevant because I try to keep emotion out of the equation with investors. Emotion's never our friend. When we're highly emotional, we don't make our best decisions. If you don't agree, I'll ask your spouse. But data and logic are your friend through this process, and it's readily available in helping you with your decision making. So take the data, evaluate the data on every aspect of that business, use your logic around it, and decision making will be very easy. If you're making decisions emotionally, that's what can lead you into a situation that you'll struggle. So, Subway, great brand. There are a lot of them out there, but it doesn't really matter. It matters what's good for you, because is being in the food industry the right direction for you? And if it is, what other options do you have in food? Maybe it's a newer brand. That's the next Subway. That might be the best option for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can always go to the FDD, Venky, go to the FDD, see how the brand has been performing the last 3 years. If there's a lot of closures in the particular brand, what you really would want to consider why there were closures. In fact, that actually might give you an idea of a Subway good or McDonald's good. It might give a path of how the brand is going. As a whole.
Gotcha. Parthiban, here's a question for you. What are your thoughts about starting a business as a nonprofit, offering a service with a long-term intent to expand and start franchising out?
So what I'm understanding here is start a nonprofit organization, expand the services, and franchise it out.
Exactly.
But still existing as non-franchise, I believe. Still existing as nonprofit, I believe. So I haven't, Seth may know more, but I haven't seen any. I don't see anything that prevents. The only thing that comes in the way is, end of the day, if you're a 503C, then you have to obey by all the rules of 503C. As long as you do that, it's no different than ATA having a Northeast chapter, Chicago chapter, LA chapter, and so on. So it should not be a problem, but certainly it's not a business. It's a nonprofit organization, and you'll have to follow the rules of 503C and whatever it is registered as.
Perfect. Seth?
I was going to say there's a lot of complexities when you're getting into regulated industries, and certainly, nonprofit being one of them, healthcare, another. That's why if you don't see franchises in certain segments or operating models, you're probably looking at a situation where there's just too much regulation that requires too much variation in variables for different states that makes it unattainable to use franchising as the approach to expand the business. Because if you go back to the beginning, why did that business model choose franchising as its method for scaling? Because they have options. They can go corporate, they can license. They went franchising for a very specific reason, and that's their exit strategy. And if they need to go nationally with their exit strategy, and there's a lot of regulations, it just becomes too complex. It's got to be simple, because people are looking for a simple opportunity. That's probably the best that I can share there.
Okay. So I see that Shiva has come back into the room, which means we are running up against the clock. Yes, Shiva?
No, we have time, actually. We have time. And I want to ask a few other questions, which they posted privately. And one is from Abdul. This is to Ajay. And Ajay, how you are managing the classes during the COVID?
Well, actually, like any other business right now, it's over Zoom, in fact. But again, since we are part of the franchising system, we actually could have the bandwidth or the financial capacity to adapt to new tools. In fact, as simple as like developing your own platforms to facilitate e-learning in a much better way. And yeah, so right now it's all Zoom, but we are being part of the franchising system. We actually are able to buy more tools as a cooperative.
Good. There is another question from Velu Palani. Is there a place where we can find the list of opportunities? Seth or Parthiban, you can answer.
Yeah, the internet, obviously, but I shared earlier, there's just too much information and it's overwhelming and daunting. And the challenge with all the rating systems, you see the Entrepreneur 500, Gator, a lot of these are pay to play. You got to be careful. Those rating systems are not always accurate. It's promotional, and you have to look behind what created that rating system. What are the KPI measurables behind that? So there are methods that you can go and get that information. Too elaborate for us to share here, but just beware. Don't always believe the hype. It's very easy when you go and look at a digital platform and any of those lists or any of those portals. You need some guidance going through that garden for sure.
So I'll add to what Seth said, very true. I'll add to that is that could be a good place to look at. Just look at it and read through it, call the 1-800 numbers provided in those, talk to them and ask them for some of their franchisees' name. I mean, obviously when they give, they're going to give the good franchisees who've been enjoying the best fruit. So try to find somebody who failed opening up such a franchise. Because that's very important. Before you get into any franchise, always talk to at least one person who failed in doing that. So you can get the other side of the story as well. So you'll have to be fair in assessing, removing the emotions, don't get excited. I mean, obviously, if you see people who grew from 1 to 25 units in 10 years, you would fall in love with that franchise. And that's not going to be all the time. So you'll have to talk to some people who have failed in that as well. That'll give you a balanced idea.
And normally, Shiva, like if there's a franchising system which has more than 10 units, they're kind of like more likely to be stable than a system which has 1 or 2 units. In fact, just because they might be learning more from different angles and different exposure, they get a little bit more feedback. So yeah, like there are a lot of options available to search for the franchise, but look for something which has at least 10 units. It might be a safe bet for someone to start with.
Thank you. Venky, with your permission, we have a few other questions, but we want to invite Ram Nagapan, as a founder and pillar of ATA. He want to talk a few words about the upcoming regional conference on September 26th, half-a-day conference, which we are going to have so many useful topics like this. Ram, it's your time.
Yeah, thank you all for having me, Siva and Venky and all the panelists. It's great to have you here. And I want to thank the panelists for being a part of this ATA family in coming and sharing your great thoughts, because our members looking forward to get your idea to grow their aspiration of being an entrepreneur or at least scale their operation. So thank you. I don't want to take too much time. I just want to say that September 26th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time, we are planning for a virtual, we're calling it a regional conference. Now, being virtual, whether you call it regional or national or global, I don't think it makes a big difference. But we used to have a physical regional conference. We are keeping up that tradition. We have a great keynote speakers. Keynotes, you all heard about the newer companies. We got all of them to come. I keep it for suspense a little bit. We're going to announce the entire agenda. Great panelists, sometimes to have fun as well. It's all about interacting. The registration link, it's free. So we're going to publish it. Please join us. Please come, share your thoughts, and be part of ATA family. So thank you all. Thank you for giving me this short, interlude for me to come in and talk about it. So thank you all. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ram.
So Venky, question to you actually, from on behalf of audience, actually. And how important, is writing a business plan?
Well, if not for the sake of funding, I think a business plan is absolutely essential for any entrepreneur to, put their thoughts and ideas on paper, and also have some, professional help in terms of helping you with market analysis, competitive analysis, looking at the demographics of a particular area, and doing some sort of financial analysis, and giving you a third-party view of what you're looking at what are you looking at entering, what do you want to get into. So when you look at it in black and white, your thoughts and ideas take shape. You see it, and then you see that, hey, I may have thought differently, but the finances, the projections show something else, right? It helps you make some decisions. I think it's from an investment perspective, both time, effort, and money, it is an absolute important investment to make if you're planning to get into any business, leave alone franchise. A business plan is the first place anyone should start. Without a plan, you just can't execute.
So any thoughts, from the panelists about this, your experiences?
I'll jump in. I absolutely agree with Venky on that. I mean, I'll give you a simple analogy. 8 times 8, 64. 16 times 60 is 256. And can you do that 5 digits times 5 digits in mind? No, you cannot. So you need a piece of paper and a pen, piece of paper and a pen to work that through. So same concept. I mean, you may be sharp enough, but you cannot think through everything if you just think through alone. You'll have to put it on paper and draw details into each of those things. And you can prepare the solutions ahead of time instead of making ad hoc decisions later down the line. So it's better to plan and detail it out. And so it's very important to draw a business plan, irrespective of whether you need that for business funding or not.
Yeah, and again, a lot of businesses are born on a piece of napkin. In fact, that's the basic business plan that starts there. So just polish it a little bit, frame it a little bit, and it'll be useful for you, as Venky said, to go back at one point to see, where things went wrong, where should I be spending the money. It's not just for the banks. A lot of landlords would need that. A lot of areas where you need to improve yourself. You definitely would be needing to go back and that might be a Bible at one point. In fact, so having a business plan would always help.
That's true.
So one more question to Ajay. You have more than 200 best brain centers all over the US and Canada. So for the audience, where are the opportunities? Where are the geographical locations? Where you still have openings to start?
So when you look at, is it for best brains or is it for in general for anything?
General and for best brains.
I would always look at areas where there is new population are flowing in. In fact, for instance, if you take in any city, check the inflow of population there. More younger families, you'll have more opportunities. Is what it is. In fact, not that areas which are not being having influx, there's no opportunities there, but it always is a pretty good area to explore. Checking the demographics of the increase in populations. In fact, if you look at Dallas, for instance, that's actually a very good area right now. In Canada, you have Toronto, which is booming with all immigrants. California is always good. Illinois, unfortunately, we are losing a bit of a population, so it's not definitely a great market. But within Illinois itself, we do have some great markets, like Naperville is a great market, in fact. So checking where that's something that I would say, sitting with your franchisor and discussing the potential opportunities of where it is, and also it has to be an area where you're willing to move. It has to fit your lifestyle. No one would want to go into an area which is cold, right? So pick your options, in fact, and sit with your franchisor, come up with that thing. But I would always vote for a young upcoming city than something which has already been there.
Cool. Awesome. So I think we've had some really good questions and answers based on audience requirements, because all of the people that are attending today are attending out of interest in the subject, right? There are people who want to explore getting into entrepreneurship and getting into entrepreneurship through franchise model. So thank you so very much to all of you, Ajay, Parthiban, and Seth, for sharing your thoughts and expertise. I'm sure a lot of people would have benefited by it, but I would like to leave our audience with the information as to how they can reach you, in terms of if they wanted to speak with you or, communicate with you. I'd leave it to you if you feel comfortable to put it out there, in social media, or we can, share it with them in private.
So, Venky, before closing, actually, I would like to introduce, our Chicago Core Committee. Chicago Core Committee, whoever, online, please, turn on your video. We want to thank you guys.
I'm going to put my email address into the chat. Would that be able to?
Yeah, please. The panelists, you can share your email address, contact details, in the chat box. We have a few core team members, actually. And Parthi, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And, it was a very, very, very interesting discussion, particularly for me. And same, we were looking at the participants on the YouTube. We are, streaming live, and there were so many questions coming, and so many people were liking it. Also, they expressed that they like the topic, and the panel and the discussions. All the information you were giving us. So you can also later on go and look at that those comments. So thank you very much for the to the panel, and Venky, special thanks to you. It's a very well distributed question to the panel, and also the way you view the the topics, that was that really made sense to most of us, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the core members also of ATEA Chicago chapter. And that we have Sundar and Ravi. Ravi was collecting the questions from the YouTube stream, and he was posting it to the panel. So thanks, Ravi. And Bala is our tech. He is the CTO here, so he made everything happen so smoothly. And also Prakash. Thank you for distributing the information to all the ATEA chapters. And Shiva, I cannot, leave it. Shiva is the driving force here. And thanks, Shiva. And thanks, everyone. And for anybody who is, watching it on the YouTube link, please send your questions. There is an email address of ATEA Chicago chapter we posted on the YouTube. Send your questions to us, we will definitely get back to you. And also we will help you, connecting to the right people also. Thank you.
Thank you, Parthiban. And that's what ATEA is all about. American Tamil Entrepreneur Association was originally, created for this purpose, to be the bridge and connect people to the right resources to help them, get on to the entrepreneurship bus. So we have Seth here, and his email address is seth@thefranchiseconsultingcompany.com, and Parthiban Jayaraman is parthij@gmail.com. And Ajay Sunkara is ajay.sunkara@bestbrains.com. All of this information will be available with ATEA. If you've registered, you can reach out to us via email, and we will share it with you, and certainly help you get to these folks, get their attention, and help you get into business. So thank you again to everyone for participating. Thank you, Shiva, for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel. It was good fun. I enjoyed speaking with all three experts, Ajay, Parthiban, and Seth. Seth, thank you so much. In such short notice, you agreed to jump on and be with us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Parthiban.
Thank you, Venky. Thanks
you
for the
all.
opportunity. Yeah.
Thanks, ATEA Chicago chapter. Hopefully, September 26th, we will all meet again.
Yep, sure. You will.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.